Hello and welcome to episode 347 of the 21st Century Work-Life podcast, where we talk about how the world of work and our attitudes to work are changing. I'm your host, Pilar Orti, and this is I'm going to see if I can do this monthly, and it's a short episode, a solo episode, where I share the reading and listening recommendations, which I've been sharing with newsletter subscribers for ages now. And I never thought of doing a podcast to go with it, an episode to go with it. So here we go. This is the February set of recommendations. The newsletter itself will come out on Tuesday, the 13th of February, and you can subscribe to that over at virtualnotdistant.com/newsletter. Let's start with some reading recommendations. The first piece I want to recommend is called The Dark Side of Remote Work, and it's via Asynchronous Agile. And I have to say that this month, don't be put off, this month, all the recommendations are a little bit dark. So it's not how I'm feeling. I don't think that the world is gloom and doom, but this is just coincidence. This is a brilliant article, and it's been written by past podcast guest and writer of Async First, the Async First handbook. And the writer is Samit Moghe, and he shows us how important the social and the work context is for remote work to be implemented successfully. What I mean by that is that the implementation of remote work doesn't happen on its own. It happens within a whole context and under a lot of societal norms and influences, and we cannot underestimate this. So I'll just read you some of the topics he covers, but I think you should go and read the article. But I'll just read through some of the subtitles. Remote work can be alienating. And this basically is talking about the fact that, especially as business leaders, when we don't see everyone, we run the risk of them distancing them from us, as in they become suddenly a headcount rather than people. So there is that can happen. Biases can erode remote work benefits. And this, in particular, he talks about the gender divide and how there is still a flexibility stigma for men who want to work more from home or in a more flexible way. This is still very real. We're still having the divide between genders in the home affects also how we view remote work and the benefits of remote work. He has something I hadn't really thought about. When you must push back, organizing is hard. And he talks mainly about, for example, the unions and groups of employees that might need to organize themselves. And I think this is a problem not just at that level, but also organizing of groups, forming of communities. Unless we're used to working in a remote work environment, we might not be able to do so as easily as when we're under the same roof all the time. And so again, this might feel like it's a downside of remote work, but actually, if you embrace it and you do it properly, you can still do it. And this is really the tone of the article. It's saying there are these issues and there are ways of tackling this, but they are there. And then he's got a subtitle, but dysfunctional practices make work harder when remote. And I think we've seen this, is that anything that's going on badly in the office, when you go remote, it's amplified. So do read the article, and then he's got a balance of the bright side versus the dark side. He's got amazing illustrations as always. Right, I've gone into a lot of detail with that one, but because I really like it and I really like Samit. You should read his work. We then have Remote Work Stifles Innovation, a massive new study finds. And my friend and probably listener of the podcast still, aren't you, Hugh? Are you still here? He sent me this over Christmas, and it's only now that I've had a good look at it. I think it's an article worth reading. He actually sent me one from another publication, but I wasn't able to access it. And let me just look at it. It's a really chunky meta study, which is published in Nature. Again, I wasn't able to access the original study, but it looks at, I'm going to just read straight away, because if not, it's difficult. So basically what they're saying is, look, we can't really see what the effects of remote work as we've known it since the pandemic are, because we don't have enough data yet. However, in the academic field, we've had remote teams for ages. So they didn't look at creativity. They looked at innovation. They looked at patents released. So researchers at Oxford University and the University of Pittsburgh poured 20 million scientific studies and 4 million patent applications from around the world over the past half century. Who had the better track record of arriving at breakthroughs? Teams that worked remotely or those that collaborated in person? Basically, what they found was that the in-person ones had a better track record of innovation. So we're not talking about general creativity. And this article, go and read it, because it's really good at balancing what the study is saying. And we can't argue, I think, with this study, that it's saying, but this is what it means, and this is what it means for other industries. So academic study, patents, innovation, this is not something that everyone in the office is looking at. If we look at knowledge workers, we don't all have to innovate. So this again already says, well, this is good for this kind of work. But then more interestingly, what they're saying is that when people are getting together in person, ideas are explored more collectively. Whereas what they found was that in remote teams, the ideas were coming from one person, and then the delegation of how to implement that idea was coming from that person. So this is something to look out for. And that's why I really like the article, that they go into depth of why. Why is in-person facilitating this type of collaboration? The other thing to say is the last 50 years, I think a bit, not a lot actually, but a little bit has changed about how we work together and how we challenge hierarchies, how we collaborate, how we facilitate teams to work. So there is that as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Do go and see it. All the links are in the show notes, but gallantceo.com, remote work stifles innovation, a massive new study finds. I'm going to go very quickly through the next two because they really are news. One of them comes from CNN saying that if you are a Mac user, there's been a vulnerability in the Apple AirDrop that the Chinese Communist Party of China seems to have used to look at the activity of some individuals. And the important thing for me is that Apple was warned about this vulnerability as early as 2019, but it remains unaddressed. Why I chose to share this is because we've got to remember that these, not to get paranoid about it at all, but we have to be very mindful of privacy settings, how protected our devices are, when we're sharing things, who else has access to this. I think not to get paranoid about it, but we do need to be mindful of what external forces are not interfering, but are privy to our work. Who can see, who can share, where is our work stored? I think that's always something that we need to bear in mind. And again, this month is really dark for recommended articles, but I wanted to share this piece from the BBC UK site, so some of you might not have access to the story. And the headline is, I had £3,000 stolen via WhatsApp job scam message. I've asked, I think it was Bing, because ChatGPT wasn't quite working, but I've asked Bing to give me a summary of this. So I'll read it out and then I'll expand a little bit. Bella Betterton, an 18-year-old from Devon, lost £3,000 to a WhatsApp recruitment scam. Initially contacted for a job interview, she was deceived into providing her card details, which the scammers used to steal her savings. The scam involves sophisticated tactics, including numerous messages and malware, to make unauthorized transactions to a cryptocurrency exchange. This incident highlights a significant rise in recruitment scams, with reported losses increasing from £20,000 to nearly £1 million within a year, suggesting a broader issue of under-reporting. And the reason why I wanted to include this is because this is really widespread, and so widespread that I've had 2 of these messages land in my WhatsApp. My husband had another one just hours after he'd actually replied to a job on a job board. It was probably coincidence, because you can imagine if somebody's sending thousands or millions or hundreds of messages of this kind, some of them are going to land on the phone of someone who's looking for work, who's just sent a job application. But in essence, all it is, my own experience was I got a text message via WhatsApp from a US number just saying something like, hey, we received our application, contact us, or do you want to have a chat, or something like this. I know enough about how companies recruit online and through technology to know that this is iffy. Also, I haven't sent anything out, or I'm in touch, I'm on any job boards or anything, so I knew this was not for me, and it looked very dodgy, so I reported it to WhatsApp. But you can see how, if you're looking for work, if you send lots of CVs out there, you have lots of applications pending, this can catch you unawares. And then basically what happens is, we need to do this checkup on you, and in order to do this checkup, you need to pay this money. I don't know if it's the woman featured here, but I did see a piece on the BBC from basically a woman had worked for these people for 2 or 3 months, and sometimes she'd had to pay some resources from her own pocket. And anyway, you can see how all of this can go. So yeah, so a cheery one, this one. There are so many phone scams, internet scams, which if they catch you unawares, if they catch you at a strange moment, at a moment of high stress in your life, it's really easy to fall for them. So I just thought it was worth sharing this one with you. I have one book recommendation for you. Well, one businessy kind of book. It's more than a business book. It's non-fiction, and for me, it's a philosophical take on time. And the book is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which has been around for a while now, I think maybe even a year, but I've only just now got down to read it. And I think the subtitle is something like Time Management for Humans. It's not about time management. It's about how we approach the concept of time and how we approach work within that. And it's wonderful. I'm going to read you a long quote which spoke to me. It spoke to me because I have discovered I'm a huge procrastinator for things I want to be doing. And I think this explains it very well. Before that, 4,000 weeks, basically the premise of the book is that we have 4,000 weeks to live our lives in. That's all we have. So let's not try and pretend that because we organize our time better, we're going to have more time. Again, a little bit dark for today. I'll read you the quote. Why exactly are we rendered so uncomfortable by concentrating on things that matter, the things we thought we wanted to do with our lives, that we'd rather flee into distractions, which by definition are what we don't want to be doing with our lives? The more common issue is one of boredom, which often arises without explanation. Suddenly, the thing you'd resolved to do because it mattered to you to do it feels so staggeringly tedious that you can't bear to focus on it for one moment more. When you try to focus on something you deem important, you're forced to face your limits, an experience that feels especially uncomfortable, precisely because the task at hand is one you value so much. I'm going to come back to that in a second when I talk about my personal updates. But before that, let me just I'll just rattle out these of my podcast recommendations. Again, virtualnotdistant.com/newsletter to subscribe to the newsletter to get these in your inbox every month. The Tim Ferriss Podcast has an episode with Matt Mullenweg, the co-founder of Automatic, or founder I can't remember. Basically, amazing guy in the remote world. I really miss. He used to have a podcast. He doesn't do it anymore. Anyway, the episode number 713 from the Tim Ferriss Podcast, released on 29th of December 2023. The title is Matt Mullenweg, The Art of Crafting a Sabbatical, Tips for Defending Against Hackers, Leveraging Open Source, Thriving in an AI World, and Tips for Life's Darkest Hours. Really long conversations. I love that they're long. Next, the podcast Work from Home Forever. And, well, Don Voltaire, he is a subscriber to the newsletter, and he once said hello. And so we've exchanged emails and we recorded an episode together. But he actually got in touch to recommend for the newsletter a specific episode that he thought would be of interest, specific interest to everyone. And the episode was released on the 18th of December, 2023, and it's called Eileen Tanner, 27 Years of Remote Work from Fax Machines to Virtual Meetings. And again, it's that reflection on what has changed and how it's affected not just how we exchange messages through technology or how we meet, but also the way in which we then work together and the pace of these collaborations. I have to say, it reminds me a lot of Maya Middlemiss, my co-host, who's been in the world of remote, like also 25 years or something. So Work from Home Forever, I recommend the show. As a show, it's got some really, really interesting stories in there. And if you like Don and want to find out more about him, I interviewed him for Adventures in Podcasting, and that is episode 71, which was released about 2 weeks ago. So I think, I can't remember, but mid-January 2024. And then there's a show, again, a podcast, not an episode, but a podcast I want to recommend, which is Hard Fork. And this is two guys, I think it's New York Times behind it. And they talk about mainly AI things, news, or big tech stories. And it's fun, as well as interesting. It's fun. I like the banter they have. They also bring guests for a bit of it. It's about an hour long, a bit longer. And Teresa, thank you for recommending this to me. All right, those are my recommendations. Let me see how I'm doing for time. Okay, 20 minutes. Yeah, I thought this might be like a half an hour show, and it is. My own update, I just thought I'd come in here. If you're still with me, maybe you're having a cup of coffee or I'm accompanying you in your walk. If you're still here, what am I up to? Well, if you might have popped over to virtualnotdistant.com at some point, if you haven't, do so now. I've got a new style, which has been designed by my friend Kate Rance, who we've changed the template of the website, so it's a little bit more elegant. We've played with generating images with DALL-E or ChatGPT-4 and putting my own drawings on top of those images. And I really like the feel, which is, well, it's very me. I think Virtual Not Distant at the moment is me. And I am lucky to have collaborators that want to work with me on different aspects of the creative process, the creations I'm doing now. And I think that that's just me at the moment. I'm playing with the latest technologies, kind of. I'm not, to a point the latest, but mainly generative AI. But I'm really seeing how they can help me create and fuel my creativity. So, and then we've got the very simple drawings that I do, because that's me. I am like that. I'm not the most sophisticated. Anyway, have a look at that. So I'm playing with that. Well, we've played with that. I've also played with, I did one LinkedIn Live audio and decided not to do it anymore, because what I found was I had as much fun doing the preamble. So when I was on my own behind the microphone waiting and recording, just doing a test recording, I had as much fun then than being live. And I've decided I'm doing too much. So if I want to continue doing the monthly podcasts, I can't add another LinkedIn Live, and because then I want to do something with the LinkedIn Live audio, which I've recorded, and it's just too much. It is too much. You see, this is the problem with technology, is that for me, I just have too much choice. So I'm dropping that, but I'm going to try and keep these episodes monthly. And this show, 21st Century Work Life, the plan is to have 2 guest interviews a month. One, what's going on with Maya from Remote Work Europe, and one solo like this one. So you've got a choice. Hopefully, I hope you like all of them, but if you only like 2, well, I hope 2 a month is enough for you. What else has been happening? So staying in audio. Oh, wow. You will hear more about this, but I recorded with the 2 wonderful podcasters from La Gran Renuncia, Cristian and Roberto, and we recorded in Spanish for Adventures in Podcasting, but we spilled over into remote work because La Gran Renuncia is about the Great Resignation. And yeah, their origin story as podcasters has a lot to do with remote work as well. And so I think I might bring it here, but I'm still trying to figure out how to bring the Spanish conversation to an English-speaking audience as well. So watch out for that. Or if you have any great ideas about how to do that, pilar@virtualnotdistant.com. Then I've released the book, The Remote Worker's Guide to Time Management, which I've co-written with GPT-4. And I'm very proud of it. I will talk a bit more in depth about it at some point. If you want some inspiration around structuring your days, thinking about how time fits into your planning and all of that, check out the book. It's a great complement to the Oliver Burkeman's that I recommended earlier. He says, forget about all these techniques. We need to go deeper. I haven't gone as deep. As ebook, it's available in all online stores. As a paperback, it's available on Amazon, and I'm slowly getting it out there through another distributor to other places. But if you want a review copy, let me know, pilar@virtualnotdistant.com. Meanwhile, I've got 2 more things for you. Meanwhile, I am still writing that book about remote work that takes scenes and monologues from Shakespeare, puts them through ChatGPT, and from there I go into an essay about my opinions about different remote work aspects. And it takes me back to that quote I read from to you from the book, which is, I'm finding it so hard to get down to it, but once I'm there, I am really enjoying it. And it's very interesting. What's happened with it is it started as a very quick project. Oh, I'll just run this by ChatGPT, take it out, polish the scenes, get ChatGPT to write an essay. It didn't work. And now it's been about a year now since I had this thought, and I'm still working on it. And it's the same that happened with the A to Z of Spanish culture, where I said, oh, let's just do 1 chapter per letter and I'll do this. And it took me a year. And very similar to what happened with the memoir about voiceover. Hi, I'm here for a recording, where I thought I'd just lay down some stuff and then it took me 3 years. So, but I'm really enjoying it. So it's more like, it's a memoir actually, but it's a memoir told through my views on remote work. It's got a lot of my own experiences, a lot of my own anecdotes. And now that I know I'm going in through that angle, I'm really enjoying it. And the last thing is I want to recommend a piece of fiction that I'm reading right now, and I was wondering whether to tell you this or not, but no spoilers. In fact, let me tell you what it is first. Then if you want to just go off and buy it and read it and not know about anything about it, then you can stop the podcast. But the book is called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and it's by Gabrielle Zevin. I think it's quite a popular book. I've seen it in bookstores and everything. And it's about the friendship of 2 people who are making a video game. So I liked it because it gave me an insight into how games are created. Doesn't go into too much detail, but enough to go, okay, yeah, right, all those different aspects. But it's essentially about friendship between them, and there's other characters as well. This is the part you need to just fast forward 30 seconds if you don't want to know anything about it. Okay, if you don't mind, it's the first time I felt physically sick from emotion in a book. So, yeah. All right, if you're back, after the spoiler is gone. And just to remind you to subscribe to the newsletter if you like this. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, then make sure you follow it, whether you're listening in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or I think that's the best thing. I was going to say, or go to the website, but that's the best thing. Then you won't miss an episode. If you have anything to recommend for the newsletter or for this episode, do let me know. Pilar@virtualnotdistant.com, and you can subscribe to the newsletter over at virtualnotdistant.com/newsletter. Thank you very, very much for listening. I hope you like this kind of episode. I've had a blast, so thank you for your time. A big thank you for listening to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. We know there are many other shows for you to choose from. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, and you can check out the full show notes over at virtualnotdistant.com/podcasts. Talking of podcasts, we have another show you can listen to, Management Cafe, which you should also be able to find on all podcast apps. I have been Pilar Ortiz. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy.